It might be one of the most significant things we've seen in our industry, maybe in our career. I missed the heyday of Steve Jobs saying he's going to put a dent in the universe. And this might be that. This might be the next version of that. So I had mixed feelings. My first feeling was, how on earth is that worth $6.5 billion? And then when I sat and thought about it, I realized that whatever you think of Sam Altman, he's an exceptional operator, and he's built a once-in-a-generation business. His impact on the world is not to be underestimated, and he's barely started. And my view is, my overriding thought was, what he's paying for is what AI cannot yet give, which is humanity and taste and curation. And finally, that is a all singing, all dancing proof that designers should have a seat at the table. Actually, makes complete goddamn sense. Good for Jony Ive.
Hey folks, my name is Arseni and this is Product Craft. Today's episode is with Ian Wharton, designer, founder, and CEO of Aide Health. Ian spent 20 plus years at the intersection of design, innovation, and entrepreneurship. He's been part of the creative leadership at agencies such as AKQA and Publicis. In this episode, we dive into Ian's founder's journey, why he launched Aide Health, what it takes to build in healthcare, the hard lessons around rejection, resilience, and luck. We explore the rise of designer founders, the blending of roles in tech, and why Ian believes that designers are uniquely positioned to tackle big societal challenges. By the way, what sparked this conversation originally was the recent acquisition of Jony Ive's team by OpenAI, a really important moment for the industry, and we tried to unpack this with Ian, what it means for the industry as a whole, as well as for design-led innovation. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment below. It takes a lot of work to put these episodes together, actually a lot more than I originally anticipated. And so if you're watching, your support really means a lot. All right, enjoy the show. What sparked this session today is the somewhat of a recent acquisition by OpenAI of the startup by Jony Ive. What was your first thought when you saw that announcement?
Probably one of the biggest pieces of news we've seen in our industry in the past decade. That's what I thought. I thought the photo was weird. We can come back to that. But I thought the announcement it might be one of the most significant things we've seen in our industry, maybe in our career. Because I missed the early days of Apple. I missed that kind of meteoric change. Because I'm not old enough. I'm too young. I'm not that young. But I missed the heyday of Steve Jobs saying he's going to put a dent in the universe. And this might be that. This might be the next version of that. So I had mixed feelings. My first feeling was, how on earth is that worth $6.5 billion or whatever? It was around that figure. And then when I sat and thought about it, I realized that whatever you think of Sam Altman, he's an exceptional operator, and he's built a once-in-a-generation business, and his impact on the world is not to be underestimated, and he's barely started. And my view is, my overriding thought was, what he's paying for is what AI cannot yet give, which is humanity and taste and curation. And finally, that is a all singing, all dancing, biggest ticket you can get proof that designers should have a seat at the table. That's what I thought of it. And I thought maybe $6.5 billion is underselling it. So my immediate reaction was, what on earth is this? And then after sitting with it for a bit, I thought, actually, it makes complete goddamn sense. And good for Jony Ive. That's what I thought.
Yeah. I had similar thoughts in a sense that to me, it kind of was a very strong message in a world that kind of everyone is chasing after automation and doing things faster and doing things quicker and using AI. Having the company that is basically at the forefront and the leader of AI investing so much into basically having the way I look at it is almost like they're buying a chance to work with the team. I don't know, maybe I'm naive, but
no, that's what it is. That's what it is. There's no other way to assign that value to it other than what Jony and his team has, which is the rarest of rare. So you're right. What they're buying is potential upside. The valuation is meaningless. It's probably stock. It's probably not. The valuation is just a giant distraction. What they're saying is, I will spend an ungodly amount of money to get something that no one else can have, which is taste. And how do I bring a technology that feels so cold and abstract to almost everyone in a way that people think, well, I'll have this physical thing. This was the nearest thing I could grab. This physical thing in my life that there's something there to it. And who better than John and his team to do that? So yeah, it makes complete sense. Super, super sharp move. Very astute. Yeah, Sam Altman's, he's the real deal.
And it's interesting also that it's not only for hardware, but at least from the news that I read, is that it's kind of oversight of design as a whole at OpenAI.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't it be? Yeah, we have everyone who's pontificating about what AI is or isn't today. There's a finite number of people who actually know, and like we've barely scratched the surface of what this means. And the interface that we have with large language models today and any of these foundational models is going to look infantile in 5 years. So there's a big question mark for me over what Jony's team did for the UI for iOS. I think it wasn't, what design is perfect, but it wasn't perfect. With all the resources and all the time and everything they have, it wasn't perfect.
I mean, everyone is trashing Siri to this day, right? Is that what you're saying?
Siri was the biggest disappointment for Apple. It started with great promise and the intent was there. And in some respects, they were ahead of the time with the acquisition they made that was the original technology behind Siri. But it's been a giant letdown. I still use it. I use it to set a timer.
Exactly.
to save me
Siri,
11
set a
seconds.
timer for 10 minutes, basically when I'm doing steak, so that I can turn it on time.
So Siri's been one of the biggest letdowns, I think, from Apple's product portfolio. I think they would be okay with saying that themselves. I think they know that. I think they tried to do something, or at least tried to illustrate what Apple has is an unfair advantage in terms of the deployment of AI, which is millions and millions of people living with an iPhone in their pocket. The question is, do we need a different form factor for AI in our lives? People have tried. They've tried form factors of things around your neck, that clip pin thing from Humane, that went nowhere fast. But props for them for taking a big swing. I think society's quick to denigrate people who take a big swing and miss. I thought it was like fucking daring. Okay, it didn't work out. So what? They're smart people. They'll figure out the next thing. The form factor is a big, big question mark. Is there something better that is more convenient than just taking your damn phone out of your pocket? Is that form factor going to be around for another 10 years? Probably. But there's a lot to be figured out. And Siri's been a massive letdown. But Apple have an unfair advantage. They tried with their recent announcement to say, listen, we're the best product company in the world, and we found this way to introduce AI into it. Genius branding, by the way, calling it Apple Intelligence instead of artificial intelligence. Hilarious move, very, very smart. But again, they haven't quite hit. They're going to get it right. But yeah, form factor, design, how it shows up in my life, I don't think anyone's cracked that yet. And I don't know who to bet on. Is that a Microsoft bet? Is that a Jony and Sam bet? I have no idea.
Do you have any thoughts of did you try to speculate as to what they may be trying to cook? Is it a different, as you said, form factor or different type of a device? Is it a different way of interacting? Is it rethinking the entire model of humans interacting with AI and what it is?
So I have a few thoughts on this. Probably the biggest challenge from a design perspective is how conspicuous you feel interacting with that technology. So I'm okay privately typing a thing to ChatGPT when I'm in a crowd. That's not obtrusive. I can do that very inconspicuously, and I can protect myself, feel safe, not feel embarrassed if I'm asking something stupid. The question is, what happens if that form factor changes to this, in science fiction? And by the way, we do end up mirroring science fiction almost always. There's great studies on that.
Yeah.
So in terms of what they're designing, honestly, I've absolutely no idea. I'm fascinated. I'm an expectant audience of what they're making. But my assumption is they're going to try and crush Apple at their own game and build a device. Sam has the capital to do that if he wanted. What he will get a hard, fast lesson in is logistics and supply chain, which he's not an expert in, which is what Tim Cook's an expert in. But I don't know, man. I don't know. It has to be a form factor that allows me to interact with it publicly and not feel stupid or embarrassed. And it has to be a form factor that's faster than taking my iPhone out of my pocket. Tough task.
I had a talk, by the way, recently with one of the designers from Humane.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, great guy. And we talked like some of the things we had to cut afterwards, but I think that there's one quote that he said that what Humane proved is that it's possible to make tiny projectors.
I like that. Like, credit to them. That launch film, world class. The hype, very hard to generate, and they took a swing. I love the ambition. Why not? This is a big question around design founders and founders in general, but we could label it to design founders. Yeah. Which, like, how do you define success? And okay, Humane, I mean, it didn't turn out to be a profitable company. It had all sorts of problems with the tech. But was that a failure for them? Not sure. So this is the thing about design founders and founders in general. Like, do you have to IPO? Do you have to sell the company for $300 million? Do you have to merge with Apple? Do you have to build a sustainable business that's 100 million ARR every year? Or in those 4 or 5 years that those guys built that product with that team, probably having a load of fun, feeling really fulfilled, having raised capital, generated all that press, all that interest, pushed the industry along a little bit. Okay, sure, after that time, it was a swing and a miss, but does that mean it wasn't successful? So it's a bit more open.
It's probably not the outcome that they were hoping for, which is like an interesting thing that with OpenAI's acquisition as well, I really, really hope that it works. And I really hope that they do come out with something that is actually going to be worthy of the expectation, because similarly as to how it can be like one of the key historical events and like the statements for the importance of design, it in theory has a chance to do the opposite and just say like, well, look, all this money and all of this talent still did not result in things. So it's like it's an interesting gamble.
For sure. Oh, I'm rooting for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they can't do it, who can?
I mean, like how much luck almost plays a role, for a lot of things to really be aligned at the right time and so I'm sure that there is a lot of brilliant people right now who have, tremendous talent, great ideas, but because of some of the ingredients that are missing, which may be outside of their control, or maybe they haven't met the right person, to start that venture, or who knows what, they're not succeeding. And so like, who knows, like how much of this is repeatable, so to speak, right?
I think you're right. I think when people are very, very successful, make money, build a business, sell it, however they define success, I think they forget to blame luck for that success. And anything I've done where I've looked back and gone, man, I was proud of that, or that made a big impact on me. If I drop the ego just for a second, you realize, you go, God, that was a chance encounter with that guy who gave me that shot. The start of my career, that I was early on in my career, there's one person that made a big impact on my career, and it was the founder of AKQA. It was a guy called Ajaz Ahmed. And sadly, we're just not close anymore. I guess things happen. But it just so happened that we were at an award ceremony for a film we made in university. He happened to be there. He wasn't really supposed to be there. And I entered that award completely speculatively. We had a conversation afterwards. And then that led to kind of 4 or 5 pretty big swings. And again, complete luck. Like, I probably would have found my way. He would have done his thing. It's luck. So just the fact we happened to be there, he happened to be there, we had a conversation that went well, and that led to other things. But again, people forget, and that's one tiny example of thousands. And I mean, the co-founder of Aide, I just happened to message him at the exact right moment that he happened to be leaving his current startup. And if I'd left it a week, he probably would have found another job. If I'd done it too early, he said not now. It's just endless. So that being said, luck works when you work. And I think most designers forget that volume of attempts is directly proportional to success. So the more you try and do the thing, you're in control of how hard you work. You're in control of how you network, who you speak to. You're not in control of the universe. But the more you try, the more you're out there, the more conversations you have, the more likely you will stumble onto the thing that makes one of them a reality.
The numbers game to some extent?
Completely a numbers game. Yeah. I think we have a romantic vision of what being a founder is, or being entrepreneurial is, or being a designer, which borrows from the tortured artist myth, which is I have to be this person in a cold, dark room somewhere, tormenting over my craft. And then the one thing I believe in, this passionate, beautiful, epic thing I'm going to release to the world, and that's going to be the one. It's just not the reality. You need to make time after time after time again. You have to speak to all these other people. And the rejection is the norm. No is the norm. Missing the opportunity is the norm. And the question is, how good are you getting kicked in the face? If you want to be a founder, that's the question. How good are you at getting kicked in the face and carrying on? And everyone has that in them, but it's a big shift, big mindset shift from just being a designer
I want to come back to the Aide and how you started that. I want to hear more of that story, but like to what you were just talking about this perseverance and the importance of trying. How do you, where do you take energy? How do you stay on that path and kind of continue to fail, continue to get rejections? It's hard, and especially for a lot of if we're gonna, I think it's hard for people. Period. I think for designers in particular, being so empathetic, like it's part of our kind of mode of operation to like always think about other people and what people are going to think. Like that's kind of what makes designers good at their jobs, at least to some extent. Like, how do you deal with that rejection? How do you stand up and go again and try?
So I think there's a couple of things. And the first thing is you have to really, really want to do the thing that you're pursuing. You have to feel like there's some massive injustice in the world, or you have to be infuriated with the fact that thing hasn't been made, no one's done it yet, or there's this. You just have to wake up and go, why the hell hasn't that been solved? And you can't stop thinking about it. So there has to be a fairly irrational desire to do a thing. That will get you through a lot. But there are also some practical things you can do, because every investor, every customer, every team member, advisor, whatever the conversation is, you're just going to hear no over and over again. So you can make friends with no, you can make friends with the rejection. There's a couple of simple ways you can do it. And the way you do that is, first and foremost, you say, okay, well, every single conversation I have, even the ones that end up in a no, is a chance to sharpen the thing that I'm trying to make and just get better. That every conversation is a chance to improve the thing I'm trying to do and take that feedback on, if I think that feedback is valid. Because it isn't always, and sometimes you do just meet assholes, but most of the time it's reasonable, useful information. The second thing you can realize is every time you meet someone new, it's a new connection. It's a new person who is rooting for you down the line. And most people are rooting for you. Again, there are some assholes who aren't, but you don't want to work with them anyway. And the final thing is, if you embrace this idea that life, creativity, design, entrepreneurialism is a numbers game, and you'll end up going through hundreds of people to get to the one yes, which is almost always the case, you realize it actually takes some pressure off. It takes some pressure off every single moment. Because if you have a VC call tomorrow and you go, okay, this is this one we have to get, your capacity to self-sabotage when you put that much pressure on yourself is unreal. Whereas if you just go, you know what, it'd be one of another 50, I'll do my best, I'll have a great conversation, I'll be me. If it comes out, great. If not, I'll carry on. Actually take some pressure off. And that's liberating, and it prevents burnout. So if you just think through those things, again, really pragmatic thinking about rejection, and you'll get through it. But really wanting to do the thing is a good first step. You have to really want to do it. And in our case, we really want to do it. And other things I've done, I maybe didn't want to do as much, and it's probably for the best anyway.
Do you personally kind of consider and care about what other people think of you?
I wouldn't be a human if I said I didn't care what anyone thinks. I don't care what they think, but I'll qualify they, right? I care what my immediate friends think. I care what my family thinks. I care what my peers think. I care what people I admire in my industry think. Do I care? I care what my potential users think, but it stops there. Do I care what the person who just lives on LinkedIn, who just talks all the time but never actually does anything? And we all know those people who just talk, never do, or are the first ones to stand on the sidelines and volunteer some opinion or criticism, but they're not in the arena. They're the timid souls, to quote that amazing passage. Cold and timid souls that don't know success or defeat. Those people I couldn't give a damn about. I couldn't even tell you how little they register on my attention. But the people close to me, yep, I definitely care what they think. So again, but I'm human, and I fall into the trap of, the hedonic treadmill as much as anyone else, and comparison to others I fall into the trap of. But I just try and realize that most people, I just couldn't care less. What practitioners and people close to me think, everyone else can go fuck themselves. Yeah, I just don't care.
I think, yeah, sometimes I personally find it oftentimes it is a limiting factor when you do consider like too much of opinions of others. And like as I grow older, I kind of look at things from other angles and maybe find more freedom, so to speak. But I think, yeah, I can personally say that, yeah, like when you are always considering what somebody else is going to think of this or that, or, you put something out there. And on one hand, like as designers, we're used to getting feedback and criticism. Like that's fine. That's natural. But then there's the almost like other angle to that. And yeah, like kind of finding that strength to build up almost thicker skin to some extent.
Oh yeah.
Is important.
Oh my God, I can give you, like, there's an example that is still sitting here with me. It's very recent. We met, I can't remember who this person was. I can't even remember her name. It's probably for the best, so I don't say it out loud. So we were going through an investment round. One of the VCs we were speaking to pulled in an expert to meet us, chat with us, understand the business a bit more, and they do like venture partner type roles in venture capital funds. It's outside experts who bring in a perspective to make sure that the fund has done its diligence. One of those. And we met with this lady who was, I think she's former NHS, our National Health Service, and a clinician, and she's just a wrap. She's in that ecosystem. And anyway, so we did this pitch, and we again went through the thing. And bearing in mind, this was no later than 8-9 months ago, and we've had some success in our business. We are in the NHS anyway, whatever. And this is what she said to us. She said, "I think you've been lucky to get as far as you have." And like, now I'm the kind of person who 3 hours later will think of the exact thing I should have said. Right? Yeah, I had the perfect line, but just, 5 days later. Right?
Yeah.
And Brian and I, we sat there thinking, how fucking dare you? We've been lucky? You think we don't know like where we've had luck? You think we don't know where we're bad? I don't need someone else telling me what I'm doing badly. Believe me, I know that better than anyone else, right? But it's just so flippant. It's like, I think you've got lucky to have got this far. Like, not just completely forget the work you've done, the hundreds of hours of patient workshops, clinician workshops, the product you've built, success, like the outcomes. I think I was like, man, sometimes you just meet assholes. And now what you can do in that moment is go, man, God, I feel beat up. I'm going to, you know what? This is it. I'm done. I'm out. Or you can say, well, fuck that person. Like what? I don't know their circumstances. She might have been having a bad day. Someone might have just given her some terrible news. Someone might have just dressed her down in front of her peers. I have no idea. But it was fucking infuriating.
Yeah.
And you stew on it for that. Obviously, I'm still stewing on it. But sometimes you just meet assholes. And all you can do in that moment is say, you know what? Sometimes you just meet assholes. And you don't need to take their advice.
I would have probably this similar reaction to like this kind of gut wrenching, like, how dare you? But then, I'm also thinking, what's wrong with luck? Maybe there's nothing like, there's nothing like, in fact, if you are lucky, well, great. If you happen to be lucky throughout your life, I want to be around you, like, let's do this. I can totally relate to this notion how like somebody dismisses all the hard work and just calls it luck. At the same time, if someone is more lucky, I would, as an investor, I would invest in people who are lucky to be successful, 5 times in a row or whatever.
Because you're right. Because this is the thing. I think that's why it's so infuriating. Because I didn't wake up and have a product. It didn't like the Figma file and the code didn't just turn up in my inbox. Right? Yeah. It's like I didn't wake up and win the lottery and buy a company that it was just so. It was one of the oddest things. Anyway, so like point being, you're going to encounter and by the way, I've had amazing feedback. Like on projects that have been very, very close to me, in that moment, the feedback's been pretty painful. Then you go away and you go, you know what? God, that's absolutely right. And you can open the door to it and let it in. We had this, I don't know if this is this, I'll share a thing with you. So when I worked at one of the agencies, me and my team, we had this rule, which was, we called it no drive-by pitching. So we used to pitch, when we assembled pitches for our clients, we used to do it in these relatively open view booths and rooms in our studio. And it would invite people just to walk by, stick their head in, look at a couple of slides and give some unsolicited feedback. Mm-hmm. And we just had a rule, which is like, listen, no drive-by pitching. And what that means is you're either in it or you're not. Mm-hmm. If you want to give us feedback, you need to know what's happened. You need the context, the ideas we've discarded. And then if you want to contribute your wisdom, which we're happy to have, you need to stick with us to the end. Because again, you can't, great mentors know this. They don't just give you the hot take. They give you grounded, contextually relevant insight that you can then act on or not. And that's a big thing. Act on or not. It's not mandated.
Yeah, I want to come back to this in a bit. Like, actually, this is a very good theme to discuss, like the whole like presentation and feedback, like managing getting feedback, because I think to some extent it's the responsibility of a person also to manage stakeholders. But rewinding back to like Aide, like you are, you've been around the block, so to speak. You've been a designer. You worked at agency, like you've been 20 plus years. You worked at AKQA, and then you also, to kind of more recent days, you are the founder and the CEO of a health tech startup called Aide Health. And you were mentioning earlier that you made that call to the co-founder that is now your co-founder. Like what prompted you like to make that call? Where were you in your thinking, and like why did you pick up the phone and call at that time?
Yeah, so from a timeline perspective, I'd spent about a year thinking through this company product problem, and I'd worked on it for about a year before I sent Brian a message, but kind of very lightly. I was still in full-time employment. It was something I was interested in. It was just something I committed spare time to. And I'd had some initial conversation with people, and it felt like it was the right time to make sure that it was worth his time. That's the point I was at, which was, it's still a mile away from being formally developed as an idea, but the beginnings were there. So I was confident enough that I had something that would at least capture his attention for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And the decision you make is, like, very rarely you can do this on your own. like really rarely. I know some solo founders. I think they have to swallow a disproportionate amount of grief and strain and stress as a solo founder. Also, I'm not entirely sure anyone has a complete enough skill set to get a company like Aide Health off the ground as one person. So for me, it made complete sense. I need someone to do this with. Brian was the first and only person I messaged, because
what are some of the qualities? Like, what were you looking for? Why is he like a serial entrepreneur? Is he a business person? Why did you feel that you needed someone's help, and why was it that person?
So we'd worked together previously. So we worked together at AQQA for 6 years. We had some weird and wonderful clients together. We know we got on, and we have a complementary skill set. So we come from the same world. I've been in startup. He was at the time was at a startup, a very successful one, kind of a 10 million ARR business, about 100 or so people that he helped kind of build from, certainly the SaaS product he helped build from the ground up. Brian is an excellent COO. I couldn't have thought of anyone better. He's got a brilliant operational brain. He loves doing the things I either hate doing or don't do very well. And I just thought it could be a really great blend. And that's what I was looking for. So I was looking for someone who had a skill set that was complementary to me, came from a similar world, and knew what the environment of a startup was. Because unfortunately, there are very few people in agencies who know what that environment's like. Brian knew. So it was all those things. Plus, he's a fun guy. We get on. He's cool. I really like him. Like, I want to hang out with him. So all those things. And the reason why that's important is because the single biggest reason startups fail, it's not timing, access to capital, the product not working, all of those things. They do kill startups. But the single biggest reason startups fail is because founders fall out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so did you basically, when you messaged him, you already had an idea and the vision for what you thought you wanted to build, right?
Yeah, loosely, but yeah. The foundation of it at least was there.
What sparked that? Like, what was your motivation to start it? Why did you think that was important?
It was just like I alluded to this a moment ago. It was a problem I thought was ridiculous to have in the age that we live in, which is essentially people living with chronic disease, feeling isolated, feeling lost, feeling worried about their health. And I knew the impact that places on them and the people around them who love them, and also the clinicians who try and provide them care. And I just thought it was a stupid problem to have in our world. And my view was pretty simple. And our thesis at Aide is pretty simple, which is medical science knows what to do with those diseases. We know how to modify them, in some instances, put them into remission. We know the lifestyle changes, the medicines. So then, well, what's gone wrong? And my view is the bit that's gone wrong is patient engagement, like patients knowing what to do with their health. And that's not a clinical problem because we're not training doctors fast enough to solve it. That's a product problem. So I just thought, okay, well, I can have a go here. This is worth my attention. That's why. Yeah. So very, very personal, and an assessment of the need and what could solve it.
And basically, for those listening, maybe who are not yet familiar with Aide Health, but it's a platform to manage chronic conditions, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's a platform for the patient, and it helps them self-manage. So improve their adherence to their medicine, help them track and monitor their health in all different ways, and improve their health literacy. And then all the insights, all the data that's generated from that platform, we share with the clinician in our clinician platform. So you can get better continuity of care, better care coordination, better outcomes. Yeah.
And so did you or Brian have any experience in healthcare before embarking on this journey?
Not professionally. We've both got experience with chronic conditions, but no.
How did it make you feel? You probably had a sense that healthcare is not the simplest industry to enter.
If I'm being honest,
yeah.
I didn't think it'd be this hard. If I'm being perfectly honest, but I think that's a good place to be. I'll clarify by that what I mean by that, which is if I'd had known in advance, I might have gone, actually, maybe I'll just do something else. So there is a benefit to a bit of ignorance in your thing, in the thing you're trying to do. But no, we knew it would be tough. We knew it would be regulated. We knew it would be an absolute nightmare trying to sell to the NHS. But ultimately, we thought the juice was worth the squeeze, so we carried on.
And so basically at the time you didn't have any funding yet, like secured. So it was, you were starting essentially just with the vision, and you and Brian embarked on, okay, we need to get funding. Was that one of the first steps, or did you start to invest and build out the platform on your own?
So I put in money early on. Brian put in a little bit, but I put in money at the very beginning. Now we're not talking, not loads, 35, 40,000 pounds. What's that in US dollars? $60,000, something like that. Brian put in a bit, not quite as much as that, but came close, I think, over the first year or so. So we put in some money because we were in the position to be able to do that from my earning history over the past 2 decades.
Yeah.
But then one of the first steps was validating the idea both at a product level and a commercial level across the UK and US, which we did in about 3 months. And then we built a classic story. There's nothing revelatory here. We built a deck that illustrated the product. So we did some product design of what it, I mean, if I look back at that deck now, it's hilarious.
How did you validate the idea? Did you literally like call up, I don't know, a hospital or insurance network and like, hey, can I come in and show you something?
Yes, almost. So we found, I can't remember the exact starting point, but as is always the case, you find one person who you think can give you insight and you cold contact them. I think in this case, I actually messaged someone on LinkedIn. So I remember her name. She was brilliant, actually. So I messaged her. She was very well connected in UK health tech and in the NHS. And then typically, if you get one good person, and you articulate what you're trying to do in a way with humility, ambition, prove you're not a complete fucking idiot, typically that one person opens you up to a network of 24. And each of those people open up to a network of 24. And it's as simple as that. I found one person who was great, and that opened up an entire network. And we spoke to commissioners, clinicians, nurses, healthcare assistants, administrators, people in the venture capital world who were health tech specialists. We met with advisors, and then we built this deck, built a version of the product in story form, and we paid for one like critical moment. There's a big inflection point, which was we paid a consultancy to assemble a panel of NHS buyers, so commissioners from the NHS, not with the expectation that they buy what we've built because we hadn't built anything, for them to give us insight on what we're missing, the gaps we need to fill, what we charge, all of those things. Off the back of that one session, one of the doctors who ran in your world a primary care setting, a GP practice for us, said, "When you're ready, I'd love to pilot this." And then we said, great. Well, that's a big enough signal for us. Off the back of that, we assembled a team, gave them equity to work for equity and sweat. That team is still with us today. They're our founding team, our 2 engineers. And we then started to build. When we had enough, we took that to a friends and family round. So we raised £100,000, initial friends and family round, to build the product to get to the pilot. And then off the back of the pilot, we did institutional rounds from there on with VCs.
Yeah, I think that the important thing here that I'm personally highlighting for myself is that you first seeked actual market validation, like actual feedback from those who would be buying the product, as opposed to just believing, completely in your own gut, which in theory, like I guess actually in retrospect, had you not gotten that feedback from those initial people, was your vision different from how you ended up building it after that? Or did you pretty much had the same thing in mind?
The core concept was the same, but things changed. So to give you an example, the very, very first iteration of Aide was purely a platform to improve adherence, so to help people take medicines, and that's it. And then very quickly we realized actually a more holistic product here is actually what's necessary. The big problem with health tech is compartmentalization doesn't serve the patient. So if I just have a product for adherence, fine, I might use it for a little bit, but I'm going to quickly get bored of it because there's no value. All it's doing is taking from me. It's taking data from me, taking input from me. Similarly, platforms that just capture your blood glucose, again, missed some. platforms that just give you education miss a big chunk. You have to do everything. Now, I know that sounds daunting and stupid, and that's typically not the strategy with a new startup or a new product. You want to specialize and then build out. But for us, that just wasn't the strategy. We had to have a holistic product. So that was a big change. Other than that, it was broadly the same. But that feedback definitely helped sharpen what we build. And again, I'll add one more thing, which is you have to look at that feedback, that validation or not, like holistically in itself. It has to be a cumulative thing. You can't rely on one or two people. And again, we met with someone who was the former CEO of one of our major charities, health charities in the UK. And she was amazing. She's an absolute arse kicker. She's like really a powerhouse. She's amazing. And I told the story to her, went through the deck, and she said, "You'll never be able to pull this off for all these reasons." And she went on a 20-minute diatribe about why it would just be too hard, even for just one condition, let alone multiple conditions. And I swear to God, I came off that Zoom call, and I was living in London at the time and I just turned to my wife and I just said, I think that's it. I think that's killed it. And she went, "Well, just sleep on it." I was like, I just can't. I think she's dead right. I think it's just going to be way too hard. And I slept on it, woke up and went, no, no, we keep going. So what? It's fucking hard. Hard things are hard. Get over yourself. So again, it changed it, but
she was right? Like overall, she had a point that is still, you just decided to, or did you discover that it wasn't as bad maybe as she was painting it?
No, she was overplaying it. Yeah, in one very specific thing, which was never the thing we were concerning ourselves with anyway. So she was right to forewarn. Listen, this stuff's hard, and because again, you have to. One way to evaluate the feedback you get is just put yourselves in those shoes, just for 5 minutes. Just pretend you're them giving that feedback to a new startup. And then what I realized was, she's been embattled in this charity, trying to raise funds, trying to shape policy at a government level, trying to make a difference, trying to educate clinicians and the NHS. And like that is, you're running through a wall every day. And I think she was just unloading on me the barriers and the hell, you know? So I don't begrudge her of it, but again, you have to really evaluate this stuff. You change your vantage.
The important highlight here is that yes, to gathering feedback, absolutely important, but also important to filter it and process it, taking things in context with a grain of salt, considering who it's coming from, like their worldview and all those things, which is kind of sometimes like I still to this day, even though I do a lot of user research, like I think like user research is a deep craft in itself. And like there are people who dedicate their lives just to that very field. Like, and I have a lot of respect to it. So it's like, I think it's always important to keep on the back of the mind. It's like, well, are you even collecting that feedback in a proper way? And like always have those checks kind of in balances, because like there is so much at stake also. Like had you listened, for example, to that, what then, right? Or somebody could paint you a wrong picture and you would have built that, and that would end up being the wrong thing.
Yeah, you're totally right. Two things come to mind just listening to you talk. So the first one is I've been speaking about all the negative feedback and the unhelpful feedback, which is the negative feedback, which is unhelpful. There's another unhelpful feedback, which is the feedback where someone says, "Oh my God, this is the best thing. This is game changing. The people who are too enthusiastic about what you're building." Even then, you have to look at that and go, "Hold on a minute, this sounds too easy. This feels like a trap," right? So that's one part. And then the second part is you have to know what to solicit out of people. That's the art form. What you don't want to say. So I use film references a lot in my speaking and my writing because I love film, and some deep part of me still wants to be a filmmaker and a writer. But there's useful analogies. So if you're doing a screen test of your film, let's say you're Aaron Sorkin and you're doing a screen test of your film, and it's the early cut. There's still loads of things missing. It's It's the MVP of a film, right? And as people leave the theater, you ask them some very specific questions. What you don't ask them is, did you like it? Because that's not helpful.
Yeah.
What you ask them is there anything that wasn't clear? Did that scene make sense? Was there any time you didn't understand the character's motivations? And it comes down to clarity and understanding, not did you like it? So again, because of what? Subjectivity. And what is the value of 3 or 4 people being subjective in that moment? Not all that much, unless it's, unless I was asking like Danny Boyle and he was like, Ian, I think this film's terrible. I'd go, okay, you're probably right. Yeah. So again, you have to know what to solicit to get the right feedback. And unsolicited feedback is just what it is. It's like you can open the door to it, evaluate it, choose whether to welcome it in or not, or you can just say, cool, it's a ship in the night, don't worry about it, carry on, get more.
Yeah, and I'll add from myself, with any user research, so to speak, the more you do it on one hand, the better, but also doing it somewhat systemically. Doesn't need to be too anal, but I like to personally differentiate from just like a casual conversation and actually, being a little bit more in the mindset that this is research. Like I do have some sort of objective hypothesis, and then thinking about, well, how are you actually going to validate it? How are you actually going to ask it? Like what I see all the time is, on one hand, people like, oh, we're just going to talk to people. And then, well, and you show us like a script of the discussion, and then everybody has a ton of feedback about just like what to ask. It's like, well, how would you even clarify all those things had you not do some prep work? So approaching things like, systemically, personally, I think is a good thing.
Totally agree. Yeah, completely agree. It's an art form, and it's not one. I don't know. Are designers taught that? Probably not. It's something you learn in professional life. Some people are great at it, some people are not. But it's the everything. What if you're unlucky and you get a bad rung of input into the thing you're trying to make? How many ideas have died along the way unjustifiably because of 1 or 2 pieces of feedback that may or may not have, that shouldn't have been listened to,
Yeah, to stay a little bit more on Aide, like I'm curious, so like at which point did you feel like you got it, like you have that product market fit, so to speak, or maybe you're still in the process of discovering? Like, was it the time maybe signing the first, I don't know, contract and actually starting to get paid, or was there another moment when you were like, okay, actually, like all the things are aligning, like it's definitely something that is working?
It's a very good question. The question of product market fit is a funny one because there's no, certainly by my measure, there's no one good definition, one good metric. You get signals of it, and then there's a point where it just turns to this runaway beast, and you go, okay, we probably got it now, actually. And you kind of forget you were looking for it in the first place. So, what stage are we at? We have commercial repeatability in the NHS. So more than one customer has bought us for the same product in the same setting. That is a good signal of product market fit. We also have to look at it from a perspective of the patient. So do patients stick with our platform? So digital health is notoriously bad for engagement and retention. So average retention rates of a digital health app in our sector at 30 days is somewhere between 3.5% and 4%, which is hilariously bad, comically bad. Ours is significantly higher than that. It's about 20 times that. And in fact, we've got patients who've been using it for a couple of years. And, that's another signal. We're pretty hard on ourselves. I would argue we're not there yet, but the momentum is definitely going the right way. Our task as one of a million is to convince investors that these signals can turn into a rocket ship, because they can. And there's going to be a ton of investors that will miss because that's not their risk appetite, or we didn't do it, we didn't articulate it properly. But they are signals for us that this could really, really take off. So we're not. I would argue, because we're pretty tough on what we're doing, I don't think we're there yet, but I think we're pretty close.
So let's zoom out a little bit from the Aide Health in particular, and just thinking a little bit more about kind of the what's called designer founder. Like, you are the definition of a designer founder. You've you're a designer who turned founder, you're the CEO. Now also we're seeing in the industry, like what we started discussing with, the acquisition of Jony Ive's startup, and then also Y Combinator is, I think they released a recent announcement, like kind of just calling for more designer founders. I'm curious at your take there in terms of like why, first of all, like, are we starting to see more of like designer founders being acknowledged, and like why is Y Combinator is interested in that, for example?
So I think what we should probably say is in our circles, in the circles you and I are in, it definitely feels like there are more, because those stories seem to be, again, you referenced the Y Combinator call for founders who are design led or design founders. So there is no doubt that we seem to be at the beginning of this kind of cultural shift and a genuine rise in the appreciation of design in startup culture. More designers are, to come back to what we said earlier, being invited to the table, which I think is a great thing. You could argue one of the reasons for that is the barrier to entry is lower. So the tools we have today make that narrative more compelling. You can grab Figma and Webflow and Stripe and at least got the foundations to build a business. But I don't know, we probably should say that that's in our circles. Like we have echo chambers, right? We're exposed to these stories more in tech and design. So it seems that way. But I would also argue, like, are there more design founders? Well, like not really. There are still barely any. And all the structural barriers that can hold people back are still there. And actually, I saw something the other day. It was a post. I can't remember if it was Medium or LinkedIn, but it was someone who, I don't know the validity of this, but I'm inclined to think it might be true. Someone looked at all the Y Combinator founders over the previous years, and looked at how many of them have design in their title, and it was something like 1% of them. So, yeah, it feels like we're on the beginning of this amazing shift, but we still need way more. We need way more design founders.
Why? Like, let's say, what would be the case to all those VCs and investors? Like, why should they care about having more design-led founders? Because, yeah, there's also potentially some of the downsides. For example, like, let's say if I'm going to turn on, I don't know, I've never been a VC, probably will never become one, but like, well, why should I invest in this, designer founder? Like, they're just going to obsess with, I don't know, look and feel. And instead I want, I don't know, a brilliant, maybe business person with an engineer, and like, they're just going to be much faster at building this.
Yeah. So there's probably, instinctively, there's two sides to that. I think there's an economic story kind of for the designer themselves, and then there's the societal story, which speaks to your point about VCs. Why should they invest? So there's a real economic reality here, which I don't think is talked about enough. Designers create a ton of value and capture almost none of it. So if you think about how most designers work, and creatives in general, but we can hone in on designers, they work in time-based service models, right? I mean, agencies, broadly speaking, you charge by the hour, by the day, by the project. What that's doing is creating a ceiling to the potential upside of the work that you produce, right? It's a linear relationship, a linear income relationship with time rather than value. And as you go through your career, sure, you might get better, you might earn more per hour per day, but what you'll rarely do is participate in the scale economics of intellectual property ownership. And I just think that's really sad. I think that's a big problem. So that's the economic story for designers. I think that's why we should have more, because I think there's just a load of designers that create tons of downstream value that they never get their hands on. But then to your point about why VCs, why anyone, why should this happen, is the kind of economic story in general. So, and I've said this before, I think designers are some of the best people to take giant societal challenges and figure out how to overcome them because of the skill sets they have in their DNA. And that skill set also happens to be a really good entrepreneurial skill set. So, like, tell me if you don't agree, but designers, I think, innately have the capacity to deal with ambiguity. They're curious. They're curious to the point of, well, how do things work better? Why doesn't that work in that way? They are able to make disparate connections between 5, 10, 50 different things, which you could argue other types of human, other roles, other professions don't have as much. and they have a massive amount of empathy for the person who will use the thing they're building, such the fact that, well, they're probably going to use it and stick with it and buy it, and that's a great foundation for a business. So my view is really simple. I think designers have this giant unfair advantage if they knew how to apply their skill set in a for kind of a simplistic term, a business setting.
Yeah. And probably, I mean, I agree with you. I think you probably agree too, since you do have a co-founder. It's like, it may be good for everybody to evaluate themselves and see which gaps they may have. Like, for example, I can personally speak to that. Like, if I was to, again, start a new venture, and I've tried different things. I used to run a studio. I tried making a botanic drink once, and I didn't have any co-founders. And like, I think knowing where your gaps are and like finding the right people, like, I don't know, unless you're like a perfect unicorn who can do it all on your own. For example, to your partner, to Brian, he's the COO. So you were probably looking to close, certain gaps, or find those complementary skills that would allow that kind of train machine to keep on going, to like deal with logistics, to deal with a lot of moving parts.
No, you're right. Yeah, so there is an element of this, which is you can close gaps in knowledge by the team around you, 100%, and that should be a big part of your desire. Like, no one person can do all that much in reality. The second benefit of having a co-founder, or again a close founding team, is you distribute the unease of not having the answer, right? So what I mean by that is, if you sit here going, I don't fucking understand something really fundamental to a business, like I don't understand cash flow, which, like, I don't understand movement of money in and out of a business, why that matters, and the fundamentals of it, is it positive or negative cash flow, or whatever, any one of a million things. If you are that one person doing that and just sitting there with that uncertainty and that unease, if you can share that, how the hell do we do that thing, that big question, with a founder or a closed team, you're more likely to get through it because it's less personal, it's less of a dent to your ego. So there is another benefit there, just like distributing the pain, essentially. But you're not wrong. Like, designers are absent of skills. And again, I can only talk from my experience. It's two things. It's practical knowledge and it's confidence. And practical knowledge is easy to fix, either with other team or with just quick application. It's not even knowledge, like practical understanding. That even just understanding some of these things will get you through it. So, like, how to like types of revenue model, types of business model, like pricing strategy, go-to-market strategy. What does product market fit look like? Right, we talked about that. What are the pathways of funding that are available to me, and which one, if any of them, are right for me? Some of the basic metrics: lifetime value, net revenue retention, basics of macroeconomics. What the hell's inflation? Why does that matter to me? What are interest rates? All of that is learnable only if you know what to ask, only if you know what you're missing. And I think the reality is, so many designers come out of university or come out of jobs not knowing what they don't know. I'm one of them. I'm still one of them. So, but the second part is the confidence bit, which you've kind of talked about. You've heard the saying, like, you're an average of who you work with, right? The people around you, you're an average of. I really think that's true. And one thing to help fill the confidence gap is a network, is mentorship. And designers typically don't have access to these types of people. Like, one question founders should be asking themselves: am I around people who foster a more entrepreneurial mindset? And the reality is, for me, it wasn't for most of my career. And then it suddenly became that. But, we've got access as designers. We've got access to, like, the VP of design at Airbnb, or because they speak at conferences that we attend, right? So we have access to them. We've got access to the chief design officer of, I don't know, like MetaLab or any of other of these excellent product studios when they do webinars or visit studios or visit universities. But if as a designer you don't see founders, you don't hear them speak, you don't see it as a possibility. And therefore that's not a path you follow deliberately or accidentally, serendipitously down the line. So again, all those things are easy to close, but that just someone still needs to close them.
Have you heard of Designers Fund?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, so again, great. So there's the Designers Fund. They have I think I saw a newsletter they started releasing, which kind of highlights design founders. That's a great first step. They've got a pretty good network. Y Combinator making this call is a good fit. Y Combinator is not the answer to everything, but they're a pretty good proxy for the temperature of Silicon Valley and tech and startups. So it's like it's all going that way, but there's still universities need to do more. And like I'm trying my best, but there needs to be a seismic leap of education and acknowledgement and stuff to help designers become founders.
Let's talk a bit about roles. And so it's interesting, like what we've been just talking about kind of from perspective of like, here's a designer, here's an engineer, there's a product manager, a business person. That still makes sense. Now, a lot of people these days are thinking about what does the future of roles look like. Like there is this concept of like everything kind of becoming more homogeneous, like overlaps, engineers who do design, designers who do engineering, etc. It's almost like, I wonder, what is your take? Like, to which respect are we still going to be thinking in terms of this like more defined lanes, so to speak, as opposed to maybe the near future looks like it almost doesn't matter as much what the role is, because everyone is equipped with similar tools that can augment. It's interesting, like as I'm saying it ties back interestingly to the very beginning of the acquisition, right? Of like, well, they did acquire very much a designer and more of like a creative team, so to speak, as opposed to a bunch of MBAs. But still, like, it's still an interesting question. Like, what's your take on roles and the potential of blending, or like, is it just a hype discussion that's gonna fade out?
I'm not very prescient. I think all I can say is I have seen a trend from at the very latest as of 15 years ago, but you could have made you argue even earlier than that. All I've seen is a trend solidify and accelerate, which is the trend of being multidisciplinary. Now, I've been, honestly, I mean, my peers and friends, I've been banging on about this for at least 10 years, if not more. In that, and what I mean is, in the world we live in, with industries that can change overnight, with tools that can change in a heartbeat, with markets as volatile as they are, my belief is as strong now as it was 15 years ago, 10 years ago, which was, if you are the type of person who is comfortable turning their hand to unforeseen challenge and exploring the breadth of their ingenuity and entrepreneurialism and invention, you are going to be much more successful than the people who aren't that. I think it's really hard to argue against that. I think the argument of the specialist, I don't think I think that's a really hard argument to steal, man. So my assumption is, if you are multidisciplinary, if you're curious in 1,000 different things, you will find more success. Not only that, you will have better earning power in the companies you choose to work at or that employ you, and you've got more chance of building some unreal business off the back of it. I don't know. The reason why I'm hesitant is because I don't know what the sentiment is in big design teams in Silicon Valley, because I've never been in one. My assumption is they're still pretty fragmented and specialized. But in the mortal world, I think the trend is be multidisciplinary, understand as much as you can, be curious in as much as you can. Yeah.
One of the big trends right now, and like something that I'm reading about every day and hearing about, is AI prototyping. And I think that some designers have been doing it already like 10 years ago, and it just nobody knew about it as much. Now it's much more accessible. I think everyone is playing and figuring out, like reviewing their workflows, when it comes to designers, like, how can I augment my process? I'm curious, have you tried any of the AI prototyping tools,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah,
Lovable or?
yeah. Replit. I've used Replit. I
Uh-huh.
haven't tried Lovable. Replit I was using whenever it was, I don't know, like 4 months ago, maybe longer. It was really early, and I
Mhm.
saw the evolution of the product. And again, it's these products will never they're going to get better every single day, every single week. And I mean, and I just saw Replit just reached $100 million of ARR, which is like these are rocket ships. These companies. So is Cursor. So is Lovable. So yeah, I've used them now. But is that a new thing for me? No, I was prototyping in Macromedia Flash when that's like I was building products in Flash when I was 18 years old. Like it's nothing new for me. I think uh, the 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 impact of using these tools is very different. Right? So I was very much limited by my ability to code when I was building prototypes in
Yeah.
Flash. Now, very much not limited by my capacity to code and prototype. Uh, I think this is on face value. I think this is a great thing. I think democratizing innovation, design, creativity, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think more people should have more chance to produce the things they want to produce and build the things they want to build. I think that's amazing. And we saw that in 2009 with the App Store. We had this all of a sudden overnight platform where one person could build a product in their bedroom and they get access to millions of people on the best piece of hardware ever designed. That's amazing. There's a cautionary tale to some of this, which is just volume of stuff, and we're building an awful lot of stuff, and there are question marks over the value of that stuff because it's all stuff that's kind of okay but not great, and again, it means it's not bad enough to not use, but not good enough to remember. So
Yes.
an amazing thing, but there's caution here, and I think there's a reality check for a lot of people, which is sure you can build, I don't know, whatever. Like you can build an app that helps you track your gym workouts. I don't know. It's the first thing that came to mind. What that doesn't get you is $1 billion business, because what's missing is go to market, pricing, and everything else we talked about. All the skills that are missing of being entrepreneurial for designers are still there, even though you can build the product as one person.
It's a much longer discussion, but some people are talking about like just the overall software industry change as a whole, with more and more essentially players entering, kind of like who are like this independent builders. And what is the impact on the industry as a whole? Like basically the notion that if you do need that gym app, well, maybe you can do one for yourself, on a Saturday night, and you're not going to be buying, a gym app from some subscription based company. And so it's an interesting thing to think about, like from perspective of a lot of these like basic consumer tools, like when people are like, I'm not sure personally how many people are actually going to end up doing this and actually going to end up building this. I still think we're going to have some sort of realization that, well, at the end of the day, just putting together things that look like interfaces doesn't mean that they're actually great interfaces that you want to use every day. I've personally changed my own kind of. I've played recently more with prototyping, like with AI prototyping. I've used Lovable. I've used a couple of other tools. I think it's great for kind of, to your example about Flash. Like I think it's great to prototype and envision things more closely instead of waiting, on the engineering resources to actually build something. Like I think it's a great tool to envision an experience in more detail and in more fidelity. But it's critical to have that um, critical eye to and like really filter your own ideas and like really evaluate whether you're doing something is good.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think I was just listening to you. It triggered a thought, which is it. These tools are great for designers getting out of their head. because we do live in here a little bit. Even though we make a thing, we're not solely in here. We're not philosophers. You know, there is an output, there is a craft, there's a thing. But what these tools, here's my optimistic view. My optimistic view is designers in their interaction with these tools, in their experimentation with them, actually end up shifting more designers to the real entrepreneurial mindset shift that's needed. Because one of the biggest things is you've got to go from craft to outcomes, right? If you want to be a founder, you are all of a sudden more responsible. You're responsible for much more than how the thing looks and how the thing feels. And some of those things will be uninteresting by default, just based on your kind of genetic makeup as a designer. But you have to kind of find ways to make them interesting. And the reality is other things must fight for your equal attention other than the craft of how the thing looks and feels, like momentum and growth in the team and everything we've talked about. And what it illustrates is a bias towards action, not perfection. I don't think any designer really gets the time to try and be perfect anyway in the roles they're in or the budgets necessarily. But these tools help us get out of here, out of the world of theory, out of the world of I can spend so much time making this thing as close to perfect as possible, then I'll put it in front of people. That's a great thing. That's a really great thing. Whether you're doing it on behalf of your employer or as an individual enterprise, I think that's a really good thing. I think getting us out of just the continuous thought and if only I could make this thing and then that page and this section and that feature, just build something and put it in front of people, validate it or not as quickly as possible, and then either put your foot through the fucking floor or do the next thing.
This is awesome. As we are going to be wrapping up, I want to be respectful of your time. I have one, I'm curious of one more thing. What does your personal craft look like these days? Like, do you design? Do you stay more in the, business realm? Like, how has it changed and evolved from the days when you used to work at an agency to now running the company?
That's a really great question. I still try and be as much a practitioner as I've ever been, with some differences. There's some caveats as well here. So, for example, we have a principal product designer at Aide Health, and he's just fucking exceptional. He's unbelievably good. How many people have I worked with, hired over the past 20 years? He's number one, right? He's the number one designer that I've met in my entire career, right? So, and why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this to virtue signal because he's amazing. We have a great team. I'm also telling you because I don't want to get in his way. I want him to be fulfilled. I want him to have ownership. I want him to feel like that Aide should look, feel, and smell like him. I want that. I want him to feel fulfilled in his job and for us to benefit from his unbelievable talent. That being said, I would like, and I hope he feels this way. I don't know. I've never asked him. You can ask him. I'll give him your email, the email address. I want him to feel like he has a founder in the company, a CEO, who isn't 1,000 miles away from the tools. I want him to feel like if he wants support, opinion, advice, a perspective, someone to bounce ideas off, I want him to feel like I'm still that guy. I don't want him to feel like, well, what is he in? Like, has he lost a step? Is he still? And that is as true as when I was in agencies as it is today. I wanted the team that I was responsible for and their fulfillment in their day jobs. I wanted them to feel like that I could still throw down when the time needed it. And often the time did need it and I would get stuck in without stepping on toes or trying to take over. And that's the hard balance. So that's how, and it's kind of, how do you class that? I don't know, player coach? Is it as simple as that? Maybe not, but it's that kind of thing. That being said, in Aide, I have 1,000 other things that I'd never had to deal with when I was in an agency. So my craft looks like 1,000 different things. I don't write as much as I'd like to, but I'd like to. If it's a product that's nothing to do with Aide, so for example, my online course, like that, everything with the exception of the filming of the course, the guy who actually directed the shoot, and someone who animated the titles, with the exception of those two things, everything else was built by me and designed by me. But again, I'm not stepping on anyone's toes. That's just my product.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a mix. But but I want to try and be good. I would like more time to write more. Writing, I think, is one of the most important things for designers to do. It's transformed my life, transformed my career. I think I couldn't recommend designers taking time to write as much as they can.
Why so? I'm curious to just double click on this really quick. Like, why is writing important? Because these days everyone is using ChatGPT more and more to create their thoughts. Why should people write?
So I started writing so I wrote a book. My book came out 13 years ago. It took me 2.5 years to write, and I haven't yet written another book because it was that fucking painful. So I started writing on Substack about a year ago, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try and write an article once every month or so. And I haven't written one for about 6 months because everyone's just churning out stuff from large language models. And I was like, well, what's the fucking point? I'm being very honest. Genuinely, I stopped doing it because I thought, well, how does anyone even know that I've taken time and sweat over this? And I really, really thought about it and worked really goddamn hard. And I've come to the conclusion recently that that's a stupid position to take, and I should start writing again. And I will. My stance on why designers should write is because it helps them solidify their thinking, and it helps them answer questions that you can't find answers to in any other way. This is actually a really good medium. So, but the problem is you can't do this all the time. I would love to do this with just take an hour, just talk about the industry, talk about design, talk about careers with smart people like yourself, and do this 3 times every week. But we can't. We don't have the time. Writing is the next best thing. To just sit, formalize your thoughts, formalize your thinking, have an opinion, have a perspective, and also do something that is really, really fucking hard. And you have to have the discipline now not to just let ChatGPT do it for you. You can use it as a research tool. I think that's fine. But the discipline of sitting there facing something that is blank while you go, what do I want to say? What am I thinking? And here's the crucial part. Do it in a way where you're not afraid to write something that sucks. Mm-hmm. Have that mindset. Sit there and think, I am not afraid to write something that sucks. And what I mean that as like sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph. Because if you think you have to write that sentence and it's perfect and the paragraph's perfect, it's just, that's not how you design, but also it's very paralyzing. So I just think it will make you smarter. It will broaden your worldview. It will also force you to read more, which it did for me. Mm-hmm. I've never been a great reader, but being a writer makes me want to read more. I think it is wildly underestimated additional value to your career and your skill set if you force yourself to write. So I really, really, really recommend it to every designer, especially young designers that I meet.
Yeah, that's a great advice. I mean, what triggers that? Basically, is it a diary that you write like on a daily basis at a certain time of the day? Or is it more like, okay, I'm working through this problem. Let me open up, I don't know, Google Docs or Notepad and start writing. Like, what are the trigger points when you decide to write?
As far as I understand, and I've met a lot of authors and spoken with them, and we've, had kind of group therapy together. I think everyone has their own version. My version of writing is it's no different from me being as disciplined as saying I'm going to go and do an hour's workout. I have to be that disciplined about it. There is, and this is just me, there is no time where I feel like I want to write. I love when I get into it. I love it. I love it as much as I love designing. Maybe more actually at this point, if I'm being perfectly honest. But there's never any part, like right now, the thought of me finishing this podcast and this great chat we've been having and just going back into Substack and writing, I couldn't tell you how much I don't want to do that. Right. So I force myself to. And it becomes a muscle over time, right? I've been working out for 20 years. It is much easier for me to be consistent and work out 5-6 times a week than it is to not. Writing turns into that. When I was doing my book, it became much easier for me to commit time to writing than to not. I've slipped out of that now, but I have to force myself to do it. It's discipline. It's pure discipline. It's gross and it sucks and it's ugly. But once you get into it, you'll love it.
Discipline, yeah. Maybe if we do another episode, I want to dive in and talk about discipline with you. You're consistently working out, as you mentioned. You have, I imagine, a routine, a schedule. I think it's super important thing to do. It's hard for a lot of people. Like I struggle with some of these things myself. By the way, one of the reasons why I thought about starting the podcast was that like I've been craving more, I don't know, sharing, more connection, more like putting thoughts out there. But I've been having a very hard time to sit there and actually write, as you just recommended. And I don't know, it probably was a naive thought that I was like, well, maybe like as you said, like as a medium to have other people and have the discussion. To some extent, it does feel easier. Now, of course, I did not think about all the extra work that goes into the editing, production, and all the stuff to release an episode. But I think, yeah, like my kind of little bit there is whatever helps to get the thoughts out, whether like I think writing, drawing. I mean, it's a complete, I don't know if you agree, but like I also started doing music maybe like a couple of years ago, like in electronic music. And it has nothing to do with writing to some extent, but but I've learned a lot of important things. And like it's been a great time also to just dive into playing with synthesizers and like learn about music production. And I almost feel like the more of different things that we just get to experience and learn in addition to whatever it is that we're doing, I think the universe works in like interesting, mysterious ways of like how things are interconnected together. And like you may be just picking up a hobby and you find out that, oh, actually, I'm now inspired to, do my next product or yeah.
Yeah, amen. We're singing the same hymn. I love it. I love it. And I love everything you just said. I totally agree.
Awesome. Well, Ian, I know we're at time. It's been lovely. We didn't get to talk much about your course, but I'm going to put a link in the comments. Sell the idea. I think that's the name, or selling.
Yep. Sell. Yeah, sell the idea.
Sell the idea is the course for everybody to check out. And if people want to learn more about you, where can people find you?
It's ianwharton.com. It's all on there. Yeah. And if you want to chat, hang out, LinkedIn is really the only social media I use. And even then, I'd love to not use it. But yeah, you can. I'd love anyone to reach out and chat. These types of conversations, everything's on ianwharton.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, I'm really happy that we got to do it. Thank you for your time. Really grateful.
Perfect. Thanks for the invitation. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, thanks for having me.